Hi, you're listening to Book Chat with author Vivian E. Moore.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Hello and welcome to Book Chat. I am your host, author Vivian E. Moore. Hope everyone had a great week, and I hope that you're having an even better weekend. All right, we're going to get straight to today's show. The title is You Had Me at Hello, and the topic is how to hook your readers from the beginning paragraphs. Okay, so have you ever picked up a book and started reading the first paragraph, and before you knew it, you were already hooked? Well, that's the power of a captivating opening, right? So, just like in real life, first impressions, they matter in writing too. The beginning paragraphs of your story, they can make or break your reader's interest, right? So the first thing you need to do is start with a bang. So imagine starting your story with a sentence that immediately grabs your reader's attention. The book that started my love of romance novels was Shanna by Kathleen E. Woodward, right? So that story, I mean, it stays with me. I read this book when I was a teenager. My sister shared it with me because, I had read a ton of books, but most of them were nonfiction books, right? So I had never really read a genre book before until my sister shared that book with me, and she shared it, and by golly, I was hooked. Okay, so the first paragraph of that book really was so engaging that it just had me transfixed. It was like I could not take my eyes from the pages because it was just that intriguing. So, just imagine a coach dashing through the crowded London streets on a mission that could mean life or death, right? So the sounds of the whips cracking and the stage driver yelling for people to yield while the occupant knows her life depends on this mission, right? So Miss Woodward didn't write that. I wrote this, but it was my impression of what she wrote, right, that captured my attention, that intrigued me, that helped me to see the imagery, the picture that she was trying to create with those words, right? So, and that's exactly what I saw when I read those words. I saw everything that I just described to you, right? I saw that coach driver, driving that coach with those horses, driving through the streets of London, because this is a historical romance, right? So, and cracking the whip, across the horses' backs, trying to get them to go faster. And then the occupant that's inside of that stagecoach, holding on to the seat for dear life, trying to make it to her destination because she has something that she needs to do. Well, that was the impression that I got from those opening, from that first paragraph of that story. This is what I saw because it was just so vivid, right? So, that opening of that story, it aroused that curiosity that was in me. And then it set the tone for what I hoped would come later, right? So, when you do that, when you start with a bang, you are guaranteed to engage your readers and to hold them, right? They won't go anywhere until they finish that story. And that's what you want to do. So I think another useful tip is to somehow pose some thought-provoking questions, because when you do that, it not only engages the readers, but it also makes them feel as though they're being included within that story. It makes them feel as though you're talking directly to them because you're asking them questions, right? So when you engage your readers from the get-go by posing a question that actually makes them stop and think, I think you've gained a reader. Okay, you probably gained a lot of readers, and I think one of the most important questions that you probably could ask them, it really doesn't, I guess it would matter if you, depending on what type of story that you're trying to tell, that you're trying to share with them. Maybe it's a thriller, maybe it's something that's dealing with sci-fi or something along those natures, something along that nature. Maybe you could ask them, this question, what if you had the power to change the world with just one decision? Well, we see that happening right now in present day. We see that happening. We see a lot of people that are powerful, that are making decisions. And, and we've yet to see any good decisions being made. We've so far, we've seen a lot of bad decisions that's hurting a lot of people, right? So what if you had the power to change the world? What would your decision be? Would it be for good or would it be for bad? Okay. But when you ask those questions, those thought-provoking questions, it can compel your readers to dive just a little bit deeper into your content, and then to find those answers and to gain that insight, right? So that's what we want to do, hopefully, by posing those thought-provoking questions that not only makes the reader feel as though they're being included in the story, when you do that. All right. So the next thing we want to do is to paint those vivid pictures, that vivid imagery. And Shanna did that for me. Right. Like I said, I was a teenager when I read that book, but I always had the mind of a writer. I always wanted to know what came next. And so that book sort of set up my career as a writer. Right. Because it helped me to develop my imagination, right? My creative talent. And that's what we want to do as writers. We want to not only develop our creative talents, but we also want to pass it on to other up and coming writers to help them to also hone their talents as well. Okay. So that stagecoach scene dashing through the streets of London, that again, it just set up a vivid picture for me. It in those description of the words, the book was not illustrated, but the words were the illustration because they were so well written that you could not help but see everything that she was describing within that first paragraph of the story. That descriptive language, it can transport your readers, into a world that you are creating because it sets the scene with all of that imagery that actually appeals to the senses, right? Again, we didn't live in those historical times. So, there's not a lot that we know about those historical times, but when you have someone that is describing everything in detail that is happening, you can't help but feel as though you are living in those times, that you actually did go back in time and, and live those scenes with the writer as they are describing them. All right. So, again, like I said, I write romance, but I don't really read it. I am more into sci-fi and thrillers and action adventures, things of that nature. Those are the genres that I like to read. Now, I love writing romance because, again, Shanna did it for me. So I love writing those stories. And I guess the reason why I still love writing romance is because I know that a lot of people, they actually love reading it. Now, for me, I don't enjoy reading it anymore because, at this stage of my life, I've been there and done that. There's not a whole lot more that I can learn about romance, right? Because, I've already done those things. And so I think that is what makes me a good romance writer, is because I have experienced a lot in my life. And so, I can impart all of those experiences to my readers. And so I still enjoy writing romance so very much, although I don't read it. But, unless it's, in one of the stories, one of the thrillers that I'm reading, I don't mind reading it, but it's not something that I desire to read anymore because, like I said, I'm past that stage as far as reading it, but I still love writing it. Okay. So again, you just need to create those vivid pictures for your readers when you are writing your stories. Okay. Be very descriptive in your language because again, that will help transport your readers to, even if it's sci-fi or fantasy or things of that nature, it can help transport your readers. It can help them see what you see when you're writing a story. Okay, so I think another helpful tip is to offer just some intriguing facts or statistics. Now, I like that a lot when I'm reading sci-fi and thrillers and things of that nature, because, for a lot of people, numbers really intrigue them. A lot of people love numbers because it is compelling, and then it can also spark curiosity. So, don't sleep on the numbers, right? So, I just want to share this fun fact. Did you know that 95% of people give up on their New Year's resolutions by February? Well, you're probably saying or asking yourself, what does this have to do with anything? But again, it goes back to offering, something that's intriguing, something that's factual, even if it is statistical. It's something that your readers can get into, right? It's something that compels them, that interests them. So, if you're writing a mystery or something that's dealing with science, if you add those things, if you include those things into your story, that is going to pique someone's curiosity and make them hang around long enough to see exactly what you're talking about, right? Okay, so anyway, that was just a fun fact. I'm pretty sure if you're like me, you really don't keep New Year's resolutions. My resolution is to do better this year than I did last year, okay? Because that's something that I can do, okay? That is something that I can actually meet that goal by trying to do better, okay? Because all you can do is try, right? All right, so I think the next thing that's helpful when you are telling writing these stories, trying to hook your readers at the beginning, is sharing some anecdotes, right? Those personal stories that create those emotional connections with your readers. So by sharing those relatable experiences, you can draw them in from the beginning. Okay, so I think. In my writing, I try to add those personal stories that that makes the reader feel at home. It makes them feel as though I'm sharing something personable with them, right? Something personal that makes me seem more personable with them. By just opening up my windows and my doors and telling them, come on in so I can share with you who I am. And I think one of the most things that I feel was very effectual in opening up to my readers was sharing with them the day that I took a leap of faith and how it changed my life forever. Okay, because that is something that most people can identify with, because at some point in their lives, they've also experienced a life-changing moment that they would never forget. So, just remember that your beginning paragraphs, they aim to entice your readers to continue reading, right? That's what we want them to do. So by using these strategies that I shared with you today, you can make sure that you capture their attention from the very start. So, craft that compelling opening and just watch as you hook your readers with just a few words. So happy writing. And as I always say, remember to like, listen, and share, because that lets me know that I hooked you from the beginning of this episode all the way to the end, so you can hear me say that and then follow that instruction. All right. And as I always say, as I end every episode, remember to tell those who you care about how you feel about them today, because tomorrow is not promised. So I love you. I hope you love me back. And until the next time you hear my voice, God bless you and goodbye.
Loved what you've heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. It would mean the world to us if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and achieve even greater things. Thank you.